We crossed the ocean, we are in California, and we are here to do something very special, not to do this. We are here to check the best Miata in the world. And there is a shop close to this beach that has exactly that. Follow me for this. No fucking way. So we are here at Goodwin Racing with Ryan, and what I think is the coolest MX-5 build ever. Like, honestly, for me, best Miata ever. Or maybe best time attack build ever. Ryan,
That's right.
We met earlier this year at the SPS Open House. I said that I'm a fanboy. I mean it. I am a fanboy. I went back to Ryan's thread multiple times through the years. I feel that I know this car from like the first day when he started. He had a very interesting arc, a very interesting journey. It has been fully self-built. It is he's cool. He's gonna say the story much better than me. But from me, take it that literally we traveled to the other side of the pond to see this in person. Not only for that, there is like some more content coming related. But one of the main reasons and one of the things that made me excited the most was to finally see this completed.
Well, thank you for coming. It's great to have you here. And this is the HyperMiata, which is my time attack car. I work with Goodwin Racing, and so we're Mazda Miata specialists. So of course, if you're going to do time attack, for us at least, it has to be a Miata. This is my personal car. It's a 1990 chassis, and I have been racing it for 15 years, and it just keeps evolving. The most recent version of it here it has taken 5 years to build. It's basically really almost completely ground up approach to everything, and it still has, it runs an LFX, as you very well know. You're quite familiar with that. I can agree. But maybe not if you're trying to do what I'm trying to do, because I've had to re-engineer quite a few things because we have a higher horsepower target. But I love the engine.
Very quick, small introduction. This car, in its previous iteration, it has been very fast in the class that was competing, correct?
Yeah.
It had a couple of class wins?
We did, well, we started with kind of racing among Miatas. You know, there was Miata-specific time attack, and there was some redline time attack and stuff like that, and we did a lot of winning there and built what I felt was a really quick Miata. And then we wanted to get into larger, you know, kind of time attack, and so then you go out and you start competing against Porsches and Vipers and Corvettes, and that's when the car got the LFX. That was 2017 or so. I had this sort of vision for the car, more aero, you know, all of that, and that's the version of the car that we ran for a couple of years and won a lot for Global Time Attack. Went to Super Lap Battle, and really Super Lap Battle is that Circuit of the Americas, Formula One track.
It's a heavily underpowered car. Like I have to stress this. Like even it's supercharged.
I mean, we got
still heavily underpowered.
I was telling you earlier, we got 4th place. The 3 cars ahead of us had 2,900 horsepower combined, and we had 300 at the time. So, you know, we were making up for, you know, things in other areas, in the brakes and in the corners, lots of downforce as much as we could, but there was no getting away from the fact that it needed more power. And the other thing is that in time attack, usually, you know, we're kind of building the car now to be able to run in several different organizations and try to be competitive in different areas. So, you know, it'll depend on which, you know, group we're running with, but most of them limit tires just based on tread wear. And so we always ran at a deficit. We always ran whatever we could get for our 15-inch tire size. And everybody else in our class, you know, who's running 17 to 18s, 19s, you know, they're on Goodyears and Michelins and stuff that we couldn't run. They just don't even make them in our size. So we always were under-tired compared to our competition. And I wanted to sort of level the playing field. And so the car really got sort of stripped to a bare chassis, and it was reimagined around this 18 by 11 wheel size. So now we can run the same tire everybody else is on. So the 3,200 pound Evo, he's on 295s, you know, square, and so are we. We just happen to weigh a lot less.
Which, by the way, is something that was impossible to do in a Miata. There is a very interesting photo that you have in your build thread that basically you have cut what needs to be cut in order just to clearance the wheel. And you literally, the tire goes, wheel and tire package, it's so tall that it goes inside the footwell. It goes where the controls, where the pedals would be.
Yeah.
So I think you had to sort of solve problems that for traditional Miata time attack builds, even for time attack builds, they were not there before.
True, and conveniently, the classes that we run in allow for pretty much modifying anything that you need to for your wheel and tire clearance. So we sort of had free reign in that regard, but it really, you put this on, the first time we put this on, of course we converted to 5x114 lug patterns so that we could run, some available stuff, and that's what all the wheels in this sort of size come in anyways. And once we had that done and we had the wheel on the car, and I start lifting it and turning it, and I realized I just kept cutting. I just kept cutting more away until, the whole idea is if you're building, I really wanted to approach this whole new version of the car as much as I could with my own, abilities, the way a professional team would approach a new build, not like how, I would do it in the past. And so a lot of times I had to, learn new things to be able to do the next step that this car needed. But it was really, so with that in mind, I wanted to build the car around the wheel and tire. So there was no compromise. And there's people who have done 17s or 18s on the early chassis, but they have to stay fairly narrow, or they have to limit their bump travel, things like that. And the extra diameter of the tire is making the ride height higher than you'd optimally want to be. So all of these things, this car doesn't have any of those challenges. It can actually run even wider than this tire, with full bump, full turning. It's built around it. So yeah, just cut, and then just build new sheet metal around that. The front, of course, within the rules that were allowed, we could take a little bit more sheet metal out that we didn't have to put back in, so it has the carbon Kevlar tubs now, sealing everything off. But I mean, you can kind of tell just from the tubs, like how far that tire goes up. It's inches more than a 15.
What I love is that it's still kind of based around Miata subframes. So it should still kind of drive like Miata. I know that for you guys looking at this with huge wings and huge wheels, it looks like so far away. But it still has like Miata geometry in its DNA.
There's very much Miata in there. I mean, obviously, almost every part is not a stock part anymore, but the geometry is very Miata. In the classes some of the classes that we want to run in, you're not allowed to move the geometry more than a certain amount. So it's still using control arms that attach in all the correct locations for a standard Miata. I mean, it still has a Miata steering rack. It's using a sort of, mashup of parts from all 4 generations of Miata. So like the sway bars from an ND, not a stock ND, obviously it's a tubular 3-piece, but it's the one that comes out of an ND. The hubs are from an RX-8 actually. It's running NC, a kit for the NC for brakes with some piston sizes changed, things like that. So it's sort of like, it's all the greatest hits of stuff from all the different generations of Miata and just figuring out how to make it all work.
100%. And what I loved about your build like many years back as I was following it, I always had this feeling that you didn't just throw money at the problem. Like you tried to use off-the-shelf parts where it was possible, then you arrived to the limit of that part, then you needed to engineer your own solution around that because you were now like in new territory. But in reality, when it could be done with off-the-shelf parts, you tried, or at least you gave it like the best.
Yeah, I mean, as for the most part, solo person building a car, I quickly learned that if I wanted to just re-engineer every single thing and make it custom, I'll never have a complete car. I mean, this just never going to happen. And so any time that there's something available off the shelf that does what we need, I'm going to take that, absolutely. There's just a lot of things that it doesn't exist. So many places where we ran into situations where it's like, I need that, or I have it in my mind. I need this thing, and I need it to do exactly this. Nobody makes that. The Bodywork is a perfect example.
Bodywork. Actually, now we're going to make this a bit gritty. I'm going to take you with me and we go around. Because you undertook one of the biggest challenges of a solo builder. Like literally changing how every panel of the car looks.
And I've made some parts in carbon fiber, stuff, but to make Bodywork was a whole level above anything I had done before. So there was a lot of learning, really steep learning curve. Each part I felt like I got a little bit better, learned new things not to do and how to do stuff differently. But the whole idea was, I mean, obviously, again, like I wanted to approach it like a professional team would. And, that doesn't involve just hacking up some stock bodywork and, making some stuff out of sheet metal. You would make all new bodywork for the car that fits the wheel and tire and does everything that you need. And so there was a challenge there, as well as wanting it to look, you can spend the same amount of time and have something that looks a little more kind of industrial, you know, or you can take the extra bit and try to make it look aesthetically pleasing too. So I wanted to, you know, we spend a lot of time in the computer on the render side of things to make sure curves looked right and everything. It was all sort of complementary. It was Bodywork that made, you know, this much larger wheel and tire look like it fit on the car, and the car was literally built for it. And then we had the idea to do the ND headlights. Again, being Miata guys, it had to stay identifiably Miata, but at the same time, I wanted to sort of modernize it, do something that looked a little different. And, you know, I wanted something that was appealing to every Miata guy, you know,
Absolutely.
that they could root for. So that was kind of the idea behind the ND lights. And as soon as we put it into the computer, like we got a scan of an ND nose and kind of just sort of, you know, stuck it on the bodywork that we had and looked at it in the computer, I was like, that's it. It's going to look so good. The wheel arches are actually something that I had a really specific idea in mind of how I wanted it to look, again, to sort of modernize the car. There's a lot of cars that have this, more modern cars that have this design element, but the GT3 RS is the one that I just looked at and said, that's exactly how we want to do it. So having that sort of 1.5 inch thick flange, flat flange around the wheel, really kind of, I think, modernizes it and makes it look very purposeful. There's a lot that we've learned over the years with Aero and what works and what doesn't. So there's obviously just ways to evacuate a lot of the air. In the front, we're pushing a lot of air or pulling a lot of air through the splitter. So then evacuating that air out of the wheel well became a priority. Similar with the rear, we're just trying to get as much air out of that wheel well where it's turbulent as possible. And you can't ignore, obviously, the massive wing. This is kind of one of those things. At the unveiling, you know, the car's pointed out front and the back you couldn't get to as much. And so not as many people looked at the wing, but then people would like walk around the car and just go, what? You know, it's like the size of it is really quite ridiculous. But the old version of the car, we ran still what is considered a pretty big wing, but a smaller wing, and we had maxed it out. At angle of attack, trying to make enough downforce to match how much downforce we made at the front. And so that version of that wing makes a lot of drag at that angle of attack. And so to try to make less drag and actually needing more downforce than what we were producing previously, the logical way to do that is more surface area. And so we can run this larger version at a shallower angle, get more downforce than we were making at something like half the drag that we previously had. So there's a lot of things like that where this car is, you know, building on what we've learned racing the old version of the car. So we're really excited to get it out to the track and see, you know, the only thing that matters is lap times. You know, I mean, it's fun to show the car off and you know, see people's reactions when they see it and everything. But to me, the only thing that matters is that time. So to get out there and start seeing what those times are going to be is really exciting.
Aero is essential, but eventually when we come and we talk about lap times, we're going to need power. And there is a small upgrade there as well. Do you want to show me a little bit?
When we realized we really couldn't avoid the need for some more horsepower, there were a few ways. Obviously, you could put turbos on anything. And there is a version of the LFX that came with twin turbos. It's not the LFX, it's an LF3, LF4 variant. But I didn't want to do turbos. I've done turbos a lot of times with the old Miata motors. They generate a lot of heat. Not to say that turbos aren't a great solution for a lot of things, but I wanted to go a different way. I did a Rotrex supercharger. I like Rotrexes because they're super reliable. They make almost no heat, and they build power linearly with RPM. So it makes for something that should be more drivable than something that punches all at kind of, you know, all the torque comes on at one point. So custom bracket, you know, mapped it all out in the computer, figured things out, intercooler, all that stuff, made all the piping and all these things. And the challenge, we actually put that on the car right near the end of its life in its previous form, but ran into all kinds of problems because the LFX, usually you're going to run it on the GM ECU because it's direct injection. The GM ECU does not like when you try to make a lot more horsepower. There's torque tables that just fight you every step of the way. So realized really we need a standalone ECU. I really like the Haltech stuff, so I wanted to run that. They can't run direct injection. So the solution that I came up with to try to go simpler, and I know you've been fighting a little bit with the direct injection with the LFX as well. We've been kind of messaging back and forth about that. So I didn't want to deal with the direct injection. There's certainly reasons that it's nice from an engineering side of things and it has its advantages, but I wanted a traditional port injection fuel system that used off-the-shelf parts where I could scale it in terms of fuel supply as high as I wanted to go, and we could then control it with an aftermarket ECU and really have no hurdles that couldn't be overcome. The challenge to that is that they don't make this with port injection, so I ended up having to make my own fuel rails and all of that stuff, which was an exciting adventure and a lot of learning, but it turned out great. We just finished at the dyno. I'm not telling anybody how much horsepower we made, but it's going to be plenty. The direct injection's working great. We're running, DI injectors, 1300cc right now. The supercharger, I did a Hall effect sensor on the supercharger pulley so that we can actually log supercharger speed, overlay that with RPM, and then you can see belt slip if you have it, which we don't. It's working great. Supercharger's running just about 200 RPM under its red line for pulley speed. So we're really utilizing all of it. We've got different pulley sizes that we can run. So I actually have larger pulleys for less boost. So we can run a more conservative power level for testing and, fun days and, demos and stuff like that. And then, at the, when it really matters in time attack, we can put the small pulley on, the spicy pulley, and it should move a lot better than it used to. So I'm really excited for that.
And it's still connected in the manual gearbox, correct?
Yes.
So take a look at the office, at your office in there.
Sure, yeah. It is an H pattern. Of course, usually these swaps are done using the same Camaro transmission that the engine comes from.
I have exactly that.
Yeah, and they work. We lost one at Circuit of the Americas, and I think it was just shock loading going over some of the rumble strips. But when that happened, I decided, it was the right time also, as we're redoing everything else in the car, to do something that's going to be just more reliable. So it now has a Jericho 4-speed dog box, kind of the NASCAR style transmissions that are out there. And that can handle 1,200 horsepower all day long. So we should have no problems there. Custom bell housing adapter and things like that to get it all to work, custom drive shaft, etc. But that is running a custom flywheel and a Tilton 7.25-inch twin plate clutch. It's surprisingly drivable. I was worried that the thing with 4-speed is that you don't really want to, with a 6-speed, first and second, you're never going to use them on the track. And so you really are running 3 through 6, or sometimes 3 through 5, depending on your top speed at a particular track. So those other gears are sort of just in the transmission, extra weight, you're never really using them. So the 4-speed, we have a lot of flexibility with ratios. So first gear actually goes to 85 miles an hour. And then you've got a nice even spacing for second, third, and fourth. So all 4 of them are relevant for your track speeds. It just means that you're going to have a little bit of trouble getting going from a stop. So I did the 7.25-inch clutch to make it a little more possible. And I was worried we'd have to pull it around with a golf cart or something. But actually, with the torque that the motor makes, it's no problem at all. You can just cruise around. But that way you have 4 gears that are all usable on the track at your track speeds. And you don't have any other gears hanging along for the ride adding weight. So it's a really lightweight transmission that's also super strong. So I think that it's going to be a pretty good recipe for things. Maybe, someday maybe, everybody in Time Attack is doing a sequential now. But those they're not a free lunch, as the saying goes. There's a lot of complexity. A lot of people have reliabilities with issues with sequentials. Not so much a strength issue, but they still run into problems, and people are trying to swap their sequential out, mid-event. So I want reliability. I want something that I can run all day with. That's part of the reason for going with a Rotrex instead of a turbo. It's why we're doing the 4-speed. And we'll see how it goes. I think it'll work out pretty well.
The car had very extensive roll cage anyway from before, correct?
It had what we sort of called a 3/4 cage previously. So it was the rear half plus door bars. Mm-hmm. So it didn't have the front hoop or the halo around the driver. And we ran into, with the old wing actually, just for one example, we were running into chassis flex issues and even chassis strength issues. So like the old wing was actually peeling itself off of the car. Like it was peeling the spot, it was welded to the car, but it was peeling all the spot welds at the back of the car up, just because of the amount of force that it was generating. So the new version of the car, we knew, especially with having to cut even more chassis out to clear these wheels and tires, is just obviously we needed a cage that was not just there for safety, and more safety would be a good idea with the speed the car should have, but also it needed to be a integral part of load transfer through the chassis. So all of the aero is all connected to the cage, and all of the suspension loads are transferred through the cage as well. Somewhat through the chassis too, but the cage is quite extensive. And you can see, for example, where like the shock towers here are connected in two corners, and then this X behind here is actually running diagonally to both ends of the cage. So that shock tower, when that suspension compresses, it pushes up, and that goes straight through into a node in the cage. So lots of stuff like that. The shark fin is actually mounted to a tube that's part of the cage, and that tube then becomes a load-bearing part of the wing mount in the back here. So there's, you just need, we're talking about some serious downforce numbers. World time attack and stuff like that, obviously everybody's throwing around some, huge numbers for downforce, but this car is going to be in that neighborhood. Formula One brags about how you could drive the car upside down in a tunnel, and it would actually stick to the ceiling, and this car could do that too. So it's a lot of force, and it needs to be supported right. So that's where the new cage came in.
Man, it is an unreal build, really. Like months back, I look at the renders, now I'm looking at the thing like in person. It is an amazing amount of work.
It's definitely been special to have literally years. When we were last competing with the car, 2018, 19, I'm already thinking about, the next versions of things that I want to do. And we got to that point where it was like I had so many of those ideas that it was like, okay, we got to just hit pause on competition because I need to start building this new version of things that I have in my head. And so to spend 5 years building just in the shop, just one, this thing and then doing that thing and then this thing, there's a lot of ups and downs. There's in the motivation, in the budget, in everything. But I just kept believing that there was all the right steps to get to a point where we're going to have something really special at the end of it that I saw in my head, but then to stand back and then see this thing here that I've had in my head for so long and it's real, it's a really good feeling. It's really fun.
And I'm here to confirm that what you have created is really mega, because we have been in parallel journeys, maybe not to this extent, but you are there. The car has all that potential, but you need a little bit more tire, a little bit more aero, and I think this is the first time that I see all this stuff executed in one car.
It's definitely a case of, on paper, it has all the ingredients, but we know from racing, previously that it doesn't matter what ingredients you have. You can have all the right, sort of components, but to make a car fast, the only way that happens is through iterative development, testing and tweaking on the racetrack. So that's the next step for this. I think people get sort of lost in big builds thinking, oh man, it's just going to be so awesome. I'm going to get out to the racetrack and it's just going to crush everything the first time, and it's like you need to start at square one, and get your alignment right. I mean, the car's going to want, we've aligned it with a baseline that should work pretty well based off what we know from the old car. It's going to want a different alignment. It's making more downforce. It has more tire. It's running more, different spring rates. It's going to want something different. So we're going to have to get out there, start taking tire temperatures, figure out what it wants. And that applies to everything on the car. But that's the next step. And that's what I'm excited for.
But it's also a little bit exactly where the fun part starts.
Yeah, I mean,
you actually get to really enjoy the fruit of your labor.
Yeah, you can.
All this years.
I enjoy building the car too, but I'm sick of it at this point. I want to drive, right? So this is the fun part: is we get to get the car out to a racetrack and start seeing lap times and cutting seconds off and figuring out the setup and tweaking things. And every time we go to the track, on the drive home, I make a list of what needs to change. What did we learn and what do we need to tweak so that it's better next time? So I'm really excited to get into that next, phase of things. But now, the phases are working with a whole car, that makes all the noises and, has all the downforce and all the G-forces and all that, instead of just, coming into the shop and, picking up where I left off on that thing I'm machining or whatever it is. Which is fun too, but yeah, this is the fun stuff.
No, 100%. Man, I honestly, I think we're gonna join you again on the track because I'm a bit curious how this thing is gonna go. I also want to have a small tour of the place, so we're gonna stop filming now. We're gonna go around, and we're gonna cut maybe with a small montage, or maybe the video gets delivered at the right time. Maybe you actually see the car running. If not, we're gonna join you in one of these California tracks where you're shaking down the thing, and we're gonna sit run. I want to thank Ryan. It has been amazing. We have been inside. I've seen what Goodwin Racing is all about. And of course, we spent all this time talking the HyperMiata. Make sure that you go follow them on social media. Make sure that you follow Ryan, follow the HyperMiata, buy something from Goodwin so they can keep building cool cars. And for me, what can I say? I'm excited. This car looks amazing. I think this is gonna be the fastest MX-5 ever. So make sure that you see it out on track, and I'm gonna do the same, probably in an event very soon.